Welcome to Fresh Start Fridays, Mindful Job Alignment. We always start our meeting with a little quick relaxation meditation to remove the stress of the week, get ready for the weekend, and just relax a little bit. What I'd like you to do is to take 4 deep breaths in through your nose and then blow it out your mouth. And then another one, number 2, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Number 3, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Number 4, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And starting with the top of your head, we're going to do a relaxation body scan. So just let yourself relax. Starting with the top of your head, just keep breathing. Your face, neck, shoulders, your arms all the way down to your hands, your chest, stomach area, your hips, your glutes and thighs, and your knees all the way down to your feet, to your toes. Just relax. Let the tension just flow away. Any thoughts come into your mind, just let them fly in and fly out. It's normal to have thoughts. And just continue breathing in and out. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. That should make you feel a little more calm. Shaking off all the frenetic stress of the week. Welcome, everyone. Fresh Start Fridays Job Seeker Group from Mindful Job Alignment. I'm Diana Stevens, and I'm the founder of Mindful Job Alignment. And what I do as a career coach, I'm a little bit different. My background is I've been a job seeker multiple times, but went back to school and got my doctorate in holistic coaching. I have a philosophy about job search that it's really like a 3-legged stool. And one of those legs and those pillars is body, mind, spirit. The second is the tactical side of job search, which we all know very well, the resumes, the LinkedIn, the networking, interviewing techniques. And then the third part is really the part that we cannot control, which are the forces outside of us, meaning the hiring managers, the recruiters, the companies, and the timelines that are always a lot slower than what we would like them to be. I base my coaching practice on a combination of all three and managing through all three, but I have a very strong focus on the mindfulness, body, mind, spirit part of it to keep your emotions and to keep your mindfulness going, creating vision, and understanding the job search process as part of your total life journey, not just about running out and getting another job. It's a lot more of a thoughtful process. So that's the premise that I come from. I do offer the job seeker group bi-weekly, which really I've designed as a respite on Friday to just come and de-stress and relax, and we all can discuss in a safe space any issues or problems, or by the same token, celebrate any great wins that people have had throughout the week. On the first meeting of the month, I like to bring in one of my colleagues, subject matter experts on a variety of different topics about job search. This month, I wanted to work with Linda and have Linda come as our guest because I really wanted to ask some questions about this job search process and what goes on in the mind of a recruiter and an HR professional, understanding the process from that side of the desk. I think the more that we understand and we know, the more that we will stop stressing about things, because when we really don't understand the process, we start to get upset and make up stories about the process. That process of getting upset and making up stories doesn't help us emotionally. So that's why I wanted Linda to come and talk. I have some questions for her that I have heard many times through clients and through the LinkedIn chat. And I've seen all these posts on LinkedIn. I'm just trying to help people understand better about the process and then what not to get upset about. Linda, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then we'll go into some Q&A.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today.
You're welcome.
I'm a former recruiter. I have over 20 years of experience in HR. I've been an HR business partner. I've been an internal recruiter. I've been a hiring manager, and I've been what we used to call a headhunter or an executive search consultant. Been a job search coach and what I'm now calling myself as a career transitions coach for the last 8 years. And one of the things that sets me apart from other people is having both sides of the desk. So what I do is that I bring experience both from the standpoint of you, the job seeker, as well as the other side. Who's looking at your resume? Who's doing the interviews? What is it that they're really looking for? What I'm excited to do today is really to talk to you about some of that information. I'm going to tell you that a lot of it is going to be beyond your control. Okay, and there's not a whole lot we can do about that, but I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to try, I hope, to try and work around some of that. I'm going to put my information in the chat in a little bit. Let me put it in right now. And I'm happy, I already know a couple of you, Denise and Stephen, come to my job seeker group as well. Okay. I can't tell if Philip has been there. Patrice, I don't know, maybe. But you're all welcome to do that, and I'll put that information in there as well. It's also a free job search group. But in any event, happy to be here.
Wonderful to have you. And I'm going to
Thank
put my link to my personal profile in as well. So I encourage all of you to put your information into the chat for networking purposes. And please do reach out to Linda and myself for any questions that you have about job search. We also know of other job seeker groups that go on during the course of the month. And it's just a good idea to really expand your communities and expand your network to see what's going on out there. There is a lot of help and support that I would add is legitimate help and support. We are not the spammy profiles that are going to ask you for $5,000 to find you a job. That is not who we are. We're here to help. I know it's like running a gauntlet, and sometimes it can feel like that at the end of the week. Let's get started with some questions, and I have a couple
Please.
that are top of mind for me.
And can I ask a favor, Diane?
Yes.
Diana, guys, if you have a question that goes along with it, if I'm not explaining it fully or if you want to expand on it, please let me know. Because one of the advantages of a group like this is making sure that your questions get answered. Okay, as we go along. So if you need examples, you want to talk more, please do, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, and you can put your questions in chat. I'll be looking at the chat. Also, if you have a question, you can also use the raise hand feature, which is at the bottom of your screen in the middle with the hand. The other thing you could do is just raise your hand if you can't find the button, and we'll call on you. So
Sounds
no
good.
pressure there. Does everyone know how to put their information into the chat? The networking piece is very important. And then in terms of saving the chat, all you do is you're clicking on chat, you're looking at chat, And on the top of the chat, across the top, it says Mindful Job Alignment, Fresh Start, Job Seeker Group. There's three dots. And if you click on the three dots, your first choice is Save Chat. So I would suggest you save it probably in about 15 minutes when it fills up a little bit more, and then keep saving it, because when you save it at a certain point in time, you will not be capturing all the rest of the communication that goes on after that. So just a little word to the wise about chat. But okay, it's like Jeopardy, right? No, we're not going to be Jeopardy. We're going to
Actually, I'm
be
looking at the Brady Bunch boxes.
I think one of the biggest things that I want to understand over as an overarching macro theme, what are some of the legalities that govern HR such that we have HIPAA and medical things? What are some of the laws that govern HR such that the level of communication can only be so
Hmm.
much, that there isn't this two-way dialogue? Because I think job seekers have the impression, oh, they're told to network with people, reach out to people on LinkedIn and all that, but yet you really don't get a response. So what are the legalities around that for a company?
So actually, it's not necessarily legal in the sense of outside the company. It's inside
Okay.
the company that's really the issue. Most companies have a lawyer, either on staff or on retainer, who tells them that there are things you can't say because you want to make sure that you are not in any way giving anybody the impression that you aren't being fair, basically, is what it is.
Okay.
So when you're asking for feedback, for example, on an interview or on a resume, and they say you get ghosted or they're not going to respond to you, they're going to tell you they can't. It's because their own internal lawyers tell them that they can't. But can you reach out to people? Absolutely. They network with you? Absolutely, if they have the time. But it also depends on the way you reach out in terms of networking. Okay. Don't reach out and say, hey, I need a job. Can you talk to me? That's not going to work. But there are other ways of doing that. Does that answer your question, Diana?
Yes, it does. That's good to know,
Can I
because
go
it
in?
almost seems that referrals are a double-edged sword. We always hear about, oh, try to find somebody on the inside who can refer you. If they have an employee referral program, that's wonderful. That's an extra bonus for them, and they might get some money out of having you hired. But if there isn't, then I guess it always is probably a leg up on that. But then once again, that comes back to the fairness piece. Does that weight them more than somebody else? So I guess it would depend on a company's policies on that.
So, not necessarily in terms of fairness, but there are two things that I would suggest. One is always apply. Don't listen to the hype that says don't go in on your own. Legally, your resume must be in my system at some point in the process. Don't wait to apply until you have that networking contact. You may lose out. Apply directly on the company site. Don't apply on LinkedIn, and definitely don't use Easy Apply. Okay. But when you apply on the company's site, what happens is the recruiter gets an email ding. They may have it set up so it comes in once a day. They may have it set up so it comes in 2 or 3 times a day. But I get a ding in my email saying people have just applied for this job, which is my push to go take a look. If you're going in through LinkedIn or other sites, I may not get that ding. And if I do, it may be as much as a week to 10 days later that it actually makes that transfer. So go in directly. The other thing is, if you wait until you have that networking contact, you may lose out because I may already have put together my list of candidates to talk to. So don't wait. Apply, work your network at the same time. Okay. But don't wait for one versus the other.
That's great. So
Okay.
tying into this, okay, I've applied, and how long should it take to hear back? Or is that just up to the company?
Diana, ideally you'd hear back within 2 to 3 days. Okay. It's not going to happen. Okay. And there is no set time frame for any of this.
Okay.
You may never hear back. The hope is, because honestly, calling out HR people, but it is easy to set something up to say, if you are not in consideration, that there is an automatic email that I can send. There's also an automatic email that should go out and doesn't necessarily, that says, we've received your application. We'll be in touch if we need to. Okay, that's an easy ding. That's just your verification that it's there. Okay, but those don't always happen.
Okay.
But I've had people, Diana, who applied. One person comes to mind. She applied in February. She heard back from them in November, was actually hired in March the following year.
Wow.
Okay.
1
Luckily,
year.
she was right. She had taken another position in between, but this was her dream job and it worked out. So yeah, I'm sorry. I see a couple of hands on screen.
Yeah, Patrice, you had yours up, and then Stephen. Yep.
Yep. So my question is, Linda, you had said don't use Easy Apply, and the first thing I do when I see that it's Easy Apply is I go to the website and see if they have it posted on their website. But sometimes if it's a recruiter or something, they don't post on a website. So is your recommendation to never use Easy Apply?
So here's the difference. The thing with Easy Apply, Patrice,
Okay.
is that Easy Apply simply basically sends them a copy of your profile.
Right.
Okay. They can go to your profile and see that. It doesn't do you a whole lot of good. It is not a formal application from a company standpoint. Now, if it is an outside recruiter, okay, who's posting the job and putting on that hat, because I used to be one, they may not be able to tell you the name of the company in a posting. Okay. But if you know the name of that outside recruiter, contact them directly.
Okay.
Okay. Say, by the way, I saw this posting on LinkedIn. I'm really interested. Can I find out more about it?
Okay.
Don't let an outside recruiter tell you they don't know. Trust me, they know.
Oh, I know they know. Yeah, for sure. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think an interesting piece about what you just said too, though, was Easy Apply sends a copy of the profile. And so it's not the official application because it's not officially on their website. That
Correct.
being the key component of, if you want to have an official application, you should apply on the company's website so
Yeah,
that you're
sometimes
in
Easy
the
Apply will
system.
sometimes Easy Apply will take you to their website, which is perfect. But otherwise, I'm a firm believer that you go directly to the company website.
Yeah.
And the other reason for that is that if it's on the company website, and I'm not talking about outside recruiters, but if it's on the company website, it's a real job.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Stephen, what was your question?
My question, Linda, goes back to what you said, apply first. So always apply. The one hang up I get sometimes when I go in, always go into the company website, find the job, apply, is how did you hear about us? And I always want to put employee referral if I can.
If you can, absolutely.
And do you think it's in good taste to do that, even though maybe I haven't contacted that person yet? You know, they're a former colleague, they're a first level connection, but I'm uncomfortable doing that without them knowing.
I wouldn't do it either.
Yeah, so that's why I reach out usually first to try to get them to agree to it, and then go
And that's
apply
fine.
after that.
But if it takes
Okay.
more than a day or two to get that response from your contact, you may lose out.
Yeah. Yeah, and it usually takes at least 24 hours because my contacts are working in that company. So they're not on LinkedIn like I am. So they might not see it as fast.
So what I might do in that case is several former colleagues work here without putting in a full name.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay. Employee referral, and then because they always ask for a name then, but you could you're saying put something more generic.
Put something generic. And when you've got the name, then you come back.
Okay. Yeah, because I always feel like that's a leg up if you're able to do that versus I just heard you through LinkedIn or something like that.
So here's why it might be a leg up. If a company has an employee referral program, okay, and not all of them do, especially these days, but if they have an employee referral program and there's a bonus there, Okay, that's always a good thing because they're looking to get that kind of growth within the company. Okay, if you have a name, what often happens is the company's internal systems say, or internal processes say, we at least have to give that resume a good look. In many companies, you will, if you have that name, and here's the benefit of the networking, is that it will give you that look. It doesn't necessarily guarantee anything beyond that. Some
Right.
companies, if you have the name and it says employee referral, they will give you at least that cursory phone screen. But again, no guarantees that it goes beyond that. And I'm finding, unfortunately, that more companies are not following that. Okay. You got that employee referral, it's a guarantee that you're going to get a phone screen.
Yeah, it certainly isn't. You're right. Even when I've done that, I sometimes get nothing, but
Exactly.
it's better to have it than not, I would say.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't wait more than 2 days to get that name and that okay, because
Right.
you may lose out.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, thanks.
By the way, here's another way of doing it. So some companies have you set up a profile on their system. You actually have an account on their system. If you do, you can always go back in at a later date and add that name. Okay. Whether it is part of the application process itself or a separate document,
Wonderful.
you can still include that at a later date.
Yeah, most times I have to set up an account, and it's through
Exactly.
Workday
Yep.
for that specific company. But so I've done that, yeah, tons of times. So I am able to go back in and then view my page and so on, and my status and all that stuff.
You should
So
also be able to edit.
yeah, exactly. And then I think I can edit and then add that. So that's good.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'll do that because what I'm finding too, I think some of these applications sit there a while and they're not actively, say, recruiting at the moment, and you might have time to go back in and update it along the way.
Okay. So here's another less known fact is that maybe not recruiters are incredibly busy. When I was in that internal role, I handled as many as 48 positions at a time.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And I will tell you that as companies continue to do this, they are downsizing those HR recruiting staffs. So one of your questions, Diana, was how active is HR in the process? To some extent, it depends upon the company, but HR is not just the filtering process. In most companies, HR is an active part of the recruiting process and of that interview process. Don't bypass them. Don't blow it off. So when they're that busy, what will happen is they will say, today I'm going to be working on this position, tomorrow on that one.
Okay.
Okay, initially. So that's one of the reasons that you may not hear right away is because they are so busy, and it's which manager is screaming hardest. Okay. Who am I going to start working on first? But with all of those balls to juggle, it's easy for not only something to fall through the cracks, but for things to take a lot longer than any of us want.
That also brings up another question that I've often wondered about based on a lot of the comments I've seen in the feed is where does the breakdown occur between internally in a company between HR and the hiring staff and then the finance people, or maybe there's other cross-functional departments involved when they're posting a position and then you see that they've rescinded offers or they've canceled the hiring for the position and they've already been way down the path of the hiring process where they've actually brought people in. What is the root cause behind that? Is that usually that somebody just business took a turn for the worst and they decide to be cautious about it?
And that's basically what it is.
Okay.
Companies reevaluate all the time. It's not a set breakdown. Before a company will actually post a position, if it's a legitimate position, okay, they will have the authority, the okay, to go ahead and post it, meaning that there's a budget for it. Budgets change, priorities change all the time. Now, one of the things we are finding, unfortunately, more of is companies posting jobs that don't really exist. And they do that for two reasons. One of which is they've downsized their staff and their staff is, we're overworked. Now what do we do? Oh, look, don't worry about it. I'm hiring for this position. There's going to be relief soon. They really don't mean it. Another is we've got a position that we know is going to be coming up down the road. So we want to build our pipeline for when
Yes.
we're ready for the future. That more with outside recruiting firms than inside companies, inside recruiters, because inside recruiters know by the time they get ready to hire, they're going to go out and re-advertise anyway because people may be off the market and the needs have changed. Okay. So just double check to see what's going on. But yeah, the breakdown comes only, it's not really a breakdown, it's a change in process and a change in priority, Diana. And actually, I had somebody this morning who told me that an offer was rescinded.
Yeah. I've seen it happen. I've seen my feed lighting up with those types of questions over and over again. And what I'm trying to really take on as a coach and hopefully provide to people as a coach, I'm the kind of person that always likes to know how things work. You know, when I'm out somewhere, I'm always looking for where all the exits are and process. I think it has to do with my retail background, quite frankly, because I always have to know how everything works. But this process of the whole interview process, and it with some companies, not all companies, but there's a certain percentage out there that there's such a lack of communication, and companies, there is a lot of things affecting the economy right now in business, and people are making decisions, and we're seeing decisions changing by the day in this country. And so it's hard to be able to plan your job search. I think you have to almost have the attitude of, okay, if that happens, I'm going to just move forward. I'm going to just take it in stride and I'm just going to keep going. And it's like sales. You have to have enough in the pipeline that when you get the rejections and people aren't going to buy from you, it's not going to ruin your whole a quota for the quarter. You still have enough in the pipeline that other things are going on. And the time spent ruminating and worrying about why there's no communication or why things were going along so well, then it stopped. At least people can understand now that there's probably things going on behind the scenes within the company.
Really, it's one of those cases of it's not you, it's them.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings me to one of my questions about this. One of the famous topics here would be ghosting. we all, especially when we've been told in the first round or in the second round, oh my God, you're checking all the boxes, everything like that. Then you get to the next round, and all of a sudden there's always the good cop, bad cop routine, right? And so the bad cop can always say, no, you don't match. And then all of a sudden you just get ghosted. Now, is ghosting also a matter of protecting oneself for the fairness? And there's no communication versus just when they get through the whole process, if that person's not selected, then they'll get their rejection notice.
Partially,
Okay.
but it's also a matter of time.
Okay.
And whether you're talking internal or external.
Okay.
External, okay, as an example. If I'm an external recruiter and I'm working with a company, number one, I have to get the permission to work with that company. I have to get all the specs. But I normally can only send in 3 to 5 candidates, which means that I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to go through lots of first round interviews with people before I send somebody in, because the only way I get paid is if I make a placement. So am I going to get back to you? Probably not, because you're wasting my time and I don't get paid if I talk to you as that follow-up. Okay. It's not that I'm trying to build a long-term relationship. I know you're going to work with me in the future. If you've got a great resume, great conversation, I may get back to you and say, this one wasn't a fit, maybe next time. But that doesn't often happen. And I hate to call people out that way. Those of you who know me know that I tell it straight, good or not.
That's why I wanted to have this conversation, because I knew it would be, the straight talk about recruiting and hiring, because I think people need to know that there's a lot of people suffering out there, worrying and crying and not sleeping at night because of this. And it's just, at the end of the day, there's a human at the other end who's what I'm seeing, overworked and too many things to do, and companies that maybe haven't made a firm decision. And it's worse now than it ever was before.
It is. And unfortunately, job specs will change all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Good recruiters know that and they adapt and they work around it. But one of the reasons that you have the internal recruiter is to find out exactly what that hiring manager is looking for. And have you ever done a test batch of anything? Okay. So if you do a test batch, think about it in recruiting terms. The first candidate I send over to the hiring manager, number one, has to be a good candidate. I've got to vet them and say that they're really good. And then internal or external, my view always was, okay, now I need your feedback. I'm not sharing it with anybody else, but tell me what you liked about this candidate, what we're missing, what we could continue to look for. Make sure that this candidate, these specs that we've talked about, meet your needs. Okay. Now, that's less likely to happen with an external recruiter unless you've got a really good relationship with the client. But internally, that should happen. Now, as they get more overworked, it doesn't always. But can you go through a round one, maybe even a round two with a client and then get ghosted? You can. Okay, whether it's from an internal or an external recruiter. Absolutely. There just isn't time. Some of it, it's not the legality that says, I'm not going to tell you you're not moving forward, Diana. Okay. Sometimes it's, I don't really know, and you may be second tier, and if these first people didn't work, I may come back to you. It's also that I just don't have time to get back to everybody, and I wish I did. So some recruiters we're finding are waiting until they actually have an accepted offer before they get back to the people that they've talked to.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay. By the way, if you've had an interview and you haven't heard, it's okay to reach back out.
I just put a lot of my links in the chat, so you can just save the chat. My personal LinkedIn page, website, all kinds of different things. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Just keep that going while we have people on. One of the other ones, say we talked about this contacting the hiring manager. You just were talking about that, about contacting them. What's a good way to follow up? And what's a good rule of thumb on how long to wait to follow up?
So if you've actually had a conversation, okay, because they're two different things. You've had a conversation, whether you're talking with a hiring manager, you're talking with an internal or external recruiter, you're going to send a thank you note right away. Okay, absolutely. You want to send it within 24 hours. And you want to refer specifically to something in the conversation. You don't want to just do a generic. Once you've done that, now you've got a name. You can go back to them in a week or two, a week to 10 days, if you haven't heard. It's not, gee, you told me you were going to get in touch with me. What's going on? It's, I was really excited, okay, about this and this. I keep seeing you in the news. It reinforces why I want to work here and what I can bring to you, and then say one thing. End it with, I am looking forward to our next conversation or to moving forward in the process. Okay. Use one of those phrases or the other. In sales, you call it the soft close. I know you're going to talk to me. I just want to tell you, I'm still interested. When are we doing this?
That's a great idea. Nice to know that's still the norm. And I say do it as fast as you can after the phone call, but is that too fast? Is there
You mean the follow-up in
the
terms of,
follow-up? Like I usually do it right away, just so it doesn't sit on my to-do list and then I forget about it.
but that's part of your thank you.
Yeah.
Is that I'm looking forward to next conversations.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I'm looking forward to next. This is after your thank you.
Okay.
Because your thank you is immediate. Your thank you is within 24 hours.
So
Every interview.
let's
Yes,
talk about LinkedIn networking and searching for and then reaching out to people within targeted companies that we're interested in. And when we find out about who the hiring manager is or some of the upline management from that company, what's the best way to reach out for them? And of course, if they're second degree connections, that's an easy way to bridge the sense of relatedness of the mutual person that you have as the person that makes you a second degree connection. That's an easy affinity point. But what if they're not a second degree connection? What if they're a third plus? What do you suggest on that? And that's provided that people can send in mails through LinkedIn.
And not everybody can.
Yeah.
All right. So controversial point of view here. My view is that if you are in job search, even if you're not, I highly recommend that you make your settings, your privacy settings, so that you can receive messages from anyone, not just connections. Now, the reason for that, yes, you're going to make it more spam. And I know that you can delete it, you can block them, you can report them. But it also means that if we're not connected, I can still message you. And that means you can get messages from people you are not connected to. If you're in job search, or if you're just doing this for networking purposes, you've already gotten your job and you want to be there to help other people, make it open. Denise.
Agree, and I've done that. But there's also a setting for on or off LinkedIn, and I've had that on off. What's your thought on that?
What setting for on or off LinkedIn?
There's a setting if you want to get requests from people on or off of LinkedIn.
I don't know that one.
Okay.
The only one, no, honestly. So the only
Okay.
one that I know of, Denise, in terms of on or off LinkedIn, is do you want your profile and your information to be visible to people on or off LinkedIn?
Okay. That might be it.
Okay.
So
My
with
feeling
that
is,
one,
so there's nothing wrong with making it visible outside of LinkedIn.
Right.
I haven't done that yet for security reasons, but I wanted validation from both of
Right.
you who I highly respect before make that move.
So
That's-
here, if you're going to make it outside, but if you're going to make it outside, we want to make sure that your contact information is visible to people on LinkedIn. Okay. If you want your contact information visible outside, here's what I recommend. And mine is, by the way. But the only thing that's visible is my email address and my LinkedIn profile. You can have a separate email address just for your job search. As long as it's a Gmail address, I don't care. And it's
Yes,
the same app,
agree.
okay?
Thank you.
But you can make that visible to everybody and it works. Not your phone number, please. Even if it's a Google phone or whatever it is, don't do that.
So you have a set of metrics, a set of contact information within your LinkedIn profile. People who are not first degree connections to you will not see that information. If you click on somebody who's not a first degree connection to you, you will only see the link for their LinkedIn profile. Now that's on LinkedIn. Off of LinkedIn, if you were to Google your name, okay, you'll show up in a Google search and it'll go to LinkedIn and it'll go to your LinkedIn profile. That's what that means. And yes,
Yep.
I think you do want that because
agree.
unless you're up to other things where you have a website, where you have a book, if you're involved in some groups that may have websites, okay, then you're going to show up in a Google search with that. Like for instance, I have a website, Mindful Job Alignment, that comes up. When I used to be in Chicago Symphony Chorus, the website for Chicago Symphony Chorus would come up and I was in the roster of artists in the chorus. And so my name was there because that page that listed the musicians in both the orchestra and the chorus were on Google. Now, once I no longer was in the chorus, that doesn't show up anymore. So those are some of the instances on Google. But while you're in a job search, if you want that, in order to be found, okay, I would highly enable that. And then to Linda's point with the controls, you can set that up with the specific email address to protect yourself that way.
But on LinkedIn, as an example.
But on LinkedIn, yeah.
Okay, on LinkedIn, make sure that you're, and again, I know that some people say that you're going to get spam, and you will. I'm not going to argue with that. But you want those messages open to anyone on LinkedIn. You do the filtering, don't get filtered out by the system. Second
Right,
thing is to go around the idea that only your connections can see your contact information on LinkedIn. In your about section, include your email address.
Yep.
Okay. You don't need to include your phone number. Most of us don't. Okay. I don't answer phone calls from people I don't know. Okay. If somebody's interested in talking with me, and that's both personal and professional. Somebody's interested in talking with me, they're going to leave a message and I'll call back. But your email address, put it out there. You want people to be able to get a hold of you. And I can't tell you how incredibly frustrating it is to just be referred back to your LinkedIn profile, especially if I can't message you. Then what do I do?
That's very true.
Okay.
I've had
So-
people that weren't connected to me reach out to me via email because I have my email address in my about section.
Yeah.
Near the top. And actually the person that reached out I was not connected to. And it was a very legitimate email, and I wound up getting a podcast out of it.
Okay.
A podcast
Now-
guest appearance. And now we're connected. Now we're first degree connections on LinkedIn. But yeah, you want to be able to be found, especially if with the headhunters. There's so many different degrees of LinkedIn. But I personally, my stance is if you can swing it and you want is to at least pay for career premium so that you can, which is the next level up after free, so that you have that messaging capability.
But
And you
even
can-
that's
Yeah.
limited.
And
And I will
even-
tell you that in 18 years of being on LinkedIn, although I'm thinking about changing it now for some reason, but I've only had a free account.
Yep.
And that worked for me as a hiring manager, as a recruiter, as a headhunter. Okay. As well as a coach. Do I get frustrated sometimes that I have a limited number of connection request messages? It does. That's why when I run into that and somebody's got that open messaging on, I'll message them there and ask whether or not they'd like to connect, so I don't waste that message request. Those of you who are on this call who we aren't connected, okay, and I know I'm connected to many of you already, but if we're not connected, I may just send you a connection request because you've seen my name now. And I don't need to, forgive me, waste that message. What I want to do is I want to look at, I'm sorry,
I think that was all my questions.
okay.
Was the
One of the things that I was
outreach,
looking-
any great things on that? We talked about how long to hear back.
Who can reach?
I suppose one of my other ones is what's the best way to connect with hiring managers and recruiters on LinkedIn, but that's probably how you massage the message.
Uh-huh. So it is how you massage the message. It's not, hey, I'm looking for a job. If you've already applied, here's a great trick, okay? Remember I said, don't wait until you get those connections. If you've got it and you find that connection to the hiring manager, to a recruiter, to somebody else in the department, just wanted to let you know how excited I am about your company. I've been following what you do. Wanted to let you know that I have applied for this position. Please take a look. You don't need to go beyond that. You can put in one quick thing, but this is not a cover letter because people who don't know you may not read it there. But please take a look. Okay, Stephen, you said you now got that employee referral. So-and-so has told me how much it is, and he's willing to speak to my whatever. 2 or 3 quick sentences, and you're done. It's enough to trigger me to do it. Okay.
What
Would
if
you do
it's
that?
not? I'm sorry, go on, Stephen.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to ask, would you do that through a connection request or an in-mail?
Yes,
Both?
you could do it either way.
Or either way, okay. Because the connection request only has the 300 characters. You just got to be real tight.
But remember,
if you
you're not
it
going to
that
do
way.
more. You're not going to do a whole long message. People aren't going to read it to begin with.
Just
Okay,
2 or 3
thanks.
sentences.
Sorry,
You're going to do
Denise.
it either way. Okay. But you can do that initially. Now, another trick. If this is a company that you're following or that you've applied to, go to their page on LinkedIn. Go to the about section of their page. Go to the bottom of the page. Okay, you want to do 2 things. One of which is you want to tell recruiters you are interested in future opportunities. Believe it or not, that makes a difference. Okay, they'll get that. You want to follow their page.
Yep.
And you want to start commenting on their posts. One of the things we are finding, and we're talking about these networking connections. Doesn't have to be somebody who necessarily knows you, but the more people you are connected to in that company, okay, even if they're first, second, maybe even third level connections, but specifically first and second, it tells me that you are interested in this organization. And that's that kind of networking without even having to talk to somebody that makes a difference. So continue to reach out to those people, especially if it's one of your target companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's a thought on following people and posting. You should be thinking about a strategy of your time of posting on LinkedIn. And while you're in job search, actually all the time, but to elevate your presence on LinkedIn, you really need to post about 3 times a week. It's about a couple of different things. One is commenting thoughtfully on industry information that you see coming through from these companies or from industry leaders in the companies.
If you are responding to a post, and by the way, it doesn't have to be a full-blown post of your own, thoughtful comments we're finding are just as useful and sometimes even more useful because it's directly to those people. You know that they're going to see that. They're going to get that notification. You're moving the conversation forward. It's much less intimidating to comment than it is to post.
Denise.
You mentioned reaching out to someone, saying that you applied for a position in the company and to take a look. What if it's someone in the company that's not a hiring manager, but who's a first or second connection or someone you feel comfortable reaching out to? I just wanted to let you know I'm enthusiastic about about applying to your company. If you could please take a look, I'd appreciate it. Or if you're not the right person, if you could forward this note to the right person, is that acceptable?
You haven't said anything about what kind of positions.
No, I haven't gotten there yet. I'm just asking before I get into the position. I'm asking, is it okay to say before I get into, you're right. I agree with you there. But I'm just talking about etiquette in, is it acceptable to say that if you're not the appropriate person, if you could please forward my note to the appropriate person?
Yes,
If
that's always
acceptable.
That piece is always acceptable, Denise. But I want to talk about the first part of that. Okay.
The role itself.
But what you initially said was,
oh, I agree with you.
Okay. So you have to make sure that when you're reaching out to people, there has to be something that's in it for them. There has to be a reason that they want to talk to you. Networking is more about that two-way street. It's not just the ask.
Right. No, I agree with you. I was just focused on that piece. I agree with you. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay. By the way, you can change your profile settings in LinkedIn, your privacy settings, to make your contact available to first and second degree connections, not just to first level. Your contact information is also then available to anyone that you have messaged with, whether they are connected or not. Hey, Lori.
Lori, you have your hand up?
No, thank you for having this great session. And as I've been a seasoned person who's been in and out of jobs since COVID, I've learned a lot. And Linda, I followed you, been in your sessions a lot. And thanks, Diane, for putting this on. One of the things I've had to do lately, because my financial runway has left and fallen to the bottom of Lake Michigan, I've actually had to go into these offices, retail stores, etc., and ask them about their jobs that are ghost jobs, blah, blah, blah. And they are in Chicago anyway. So don't be afraid to actually, if you know where the place of employment is, even if it's an office job, you get a lot more bang for your buck if you talk to a human being, because these people don't answer the phone. They don't have time for LinkedIn, because right now companies have these jobs posted and it's a bunch of malarkey. So if you can find somebody who's in the company who'll talk to you, I don't know, depending on where you live, but the job market right now is a lot different than it was in 2021, 22, 23,
Yep.
24. And even just entry level jobs. They're making you go through like psycho tests. So I don't know. I'm in Chicago, so it's a different world here, but just don't wait around, just keep going at it every day. And the more people you can talk to live in person and get your network out there, get your name out. And it depends on what field you're in. So you just have to keep pressing forward and take all the advice you can get from these great professionals who are helping us. And that's all I can say. I just want to give everyone encouragement because it's a journey and
It
job
is.
hunting is not what it used to be. That's all
It
I
is.
can say.
Well, I think
I
you
know.
bring up a very good point. And one of the things that I talk about with anyone who's following me, and one of my big proponents is one of the first things you do. And matter of fact, I'm going to do a video on this and post it on LinkedIn. My belief is one of the first things you do after you get downsized and after you've signed all your paperwork and you've applied for unemployment, you find out exactly how much you can make in a part-time job while you're on unemployment. And you go out and you find yourself a part-time position that won't blow out your unemployment. In the state of Illinois, we can earn up to 50% of our unemployment benefit in a part-time job. You get extra money coming in and you're busy, you're focused, whatever that may be for a position, whether it's in an office, in a store, or doing something online. And secondly, you are learning a new company and getting in with another company, and you never know what full-time openings may arise down the line. But as you go through the journey and as your schedule changes, you will see that maybe it's not so bad to put together a mosaic of a variety of portfolio work. In some cases, many people have rethought going back into the corporate world, W-2 employment, because of what's gone on with the downsizings. Because as long as you are reliant on one company for your income, that is a very tenuous situation should something go wrong. So my advice is to get that additional work shored up right away. There's nothing wrong with that.
Ask the question about walking into a company.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to put on my legal HR hat again. Okay. We used to do that all the time. We'd walk in, we'd drop off an application, we'd talk to somebody. It doesn't work that way anymore. Retail stores, yes. Mom and pops, yes. Small companies, yes. But if a company normally has more than 25 to 50 employees, it's not going to work. And here's my HR hat again. We were talking about the fairness issue. If I see you drop off an application, I know who you are. I can do the demographics in my head, which may or may not work to your advantage, depending upon the company. But that whole idea of, I can't talk to you unless you actually apply through my system. In larger companies, many companies were told, you walk in the door, somebody hands you a resume, tell them to apply online and take that resume that they handed you, and it immediately gets filed in the circular bin. Small companies, retail stores, hospitality organizations, doesn't work that way. But you can absolutely go in and talk to people and get that application in.
Sorry, I didn't clarify. The only places I'm walking into are places that I've already submitted an online application, didn't hear back, and I have the name of the hiring manager or some HR person. And it's all small retail, small shops, nothing large, no corporate business. And I would not do that for your reasoning, Linda. Now I know the
Yeah.
rules.
I know
So
you do.
sorry, I didn't clarify my,
It's okay.
I didn't preface I've already applied for these jobs. So I've got 20 jobs I've applied for in the last 2 weeks, ghosted, and I want to see, are these real jobs? And they're all like within walking distance or public transportation of my house.
Thank you for clarification.
And I think you need to do both. I know all the part-time ones I've applied to, I've applied online. Even if I was referred or even if I walked in the store,
In
I
fact,
still-
actually, yeah, there are
still
some
applied online.
organizations that have an online application process, a kiosk right in their store.
Yeah.
Okay. I know Target used to do that. Kohl's used to do, I don't know whether they still do, but yeah.
Great conversation today. I want to thank Linda. Thank you for coming and sharing all your words of wisdom. And there's a lot in the chat, so be sure to save the chat. Lots of good information, lots of good links. Everybody's got their information on there, so I will wholeheartedly recommend that you all connect with each other and share your resources about good events you've been to, good groups that you've joined, and contact both Linda and myself. Linda does a weekly job seeker lunch and learn on Wednesday, and I do mine bi-weekly on Fridays. As you're meeting other people on your search journey, please refer them to both of our groups because we're always providing networking opportunities and informational updates. And we're posting regularly on LinkedIn to help job seekers. We both offer coaching services. You can find out more about our coaching services reaching out to us directly. I do some customized coaching. And in May, I'm going to be launching a large program that's going to be combining both the mindfulness and the tactical side along with a accountability group. As I get that organized and start promoting that on LinkedIn, you'll know more about that. But we're here to help.
Absolutely.
We've all been there on all different sides of the desk. We know how it is. My personal, I've been there multiple times. And the biggest thing that I found when I went through was that there was all sorts of wonderful support about the tactical side, about how to land, but the emotional piece and the emotions I was feeling, and it was exacerbated by the personal situation I had with my mother's elder care at that time. And of course, this particular event in one's life does not help one's 401k contributions at all. It does not help the financial piece. So you have to shore up that piece and understand exactly what your timeline is based on your own personal situation. It breaks my heart when I see posts about people who didn't plan. That's why there's a planning process that goes on. It helps to be as informed as you can.